He's a reciter, an artist, a host, and a TV presenter. Ali Fadhil has done it all.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Folks, thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Nothing But Beauty with Malihe. This time my guest is the one and only Ali Fadhil. Assalamu alaikum, Ali. Can you hear me?
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. I hear you loud and clear.
Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing fine, alhamdulillah. All well. We've started the year. All of the New Year's resolutions, they only lasted a month. We're into February, and nothing lasted more than 4 or 5 weeks, as usual. But other than that, alhamdulillah, we're doing well. Looking forward to an exciting but challenging year, both for family and work and spirituality and majalis and programs and initiatives. So yeah, we're keeping busy, alhamdulillah.
For sure, for sure. As long as we have the Ahlulbayt, we are good to go. Isn't that right? Okay, let's jump right into our topic, how to keep our youth on the path of the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam, especially our youth in the West. As a teacher myself and as a parent yourself, we both agree that this is a very, very, very extremely topic to discuss, especially in today's world. So, religion, it's a way of life. Personally, it's how I like to live my life. But a Pew Research Center survey in 2021 found out that 29% of young adults in the US said that they had no religious affiliation, which was an increase of 6 percentage points from 2016. You, mashallah, you're someone who interacts a lot with young adults, with the youth. What do you, in your experience, think causes the youth to leave the path of faith, especially of the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam?
Yeah, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Once again, thank you so much for having me on the show. Hopefully, what we deliver is of value to parents and the youth alike in what we say, and hopefully a lesson or two is learnt regarding our experiences, both yourself and myself. And I think if we break down the question just a bit in terms of, you mentioned things like US, young adults, there's a certain percentage that have lost religion or not interested in religion?
That they have no religious affiliation.
Okay, cool. So, look, I mean, just if you want to break that down, I guess, look, the USA is one country. Young adults could they could be Muslim, could not be Muslim, if you know what I mean. They could be Christian, Jewish, whatever. So, I can only speak about my own personal background, where I grew up in, and that's the UK. In the UK, I'd probably say it's probably similar in terms of the statistics on the overall UK. However, for the population, especially myself, who is Iraqi, and I have mixed with different backgrounds, being Pakistani or Lebanese or the Khawaja community, we have to break that down and kind of really understand the history before we can understand why is this happening now and what steps to take in order to decrease that number, that percentage, so that people are a bit more religious or have religious affiliation. So for me personally in the UK, so with the Iraqi community, I'd say about 30 years ago, due to political situations, they had to leave their home country, leave the comfort of culture, of language, freedom of religion to a certain extent. Of course, in Iraq, you didn't have that freedom of expression, especially the freedom to practice your religious beliefs, especially Shia Muslims in Iraq. And so they had to flee the country. Most of the Iraqis that went to the UK went to the UK for a reason, and that is to either leave the country for their safety or find a new country that they are able to live a better life than they were living in Iraq. Most of the parents, if you ask them now, by the way, they would say, look, if it wasn't for certain political situations, they would have stayed in Iraq. Why would they? Why would anyone want to leave your hometown, your country, your culture, your religion? So coming to the UK, there are a couple of issues that happened. First and foremost, there was a culture barrier, then there was a language barrier, and so the parents, what they felt was that, look, we have to protect our youth and our young adults who are now coming into a society that we don't know about, into a religion that we're not really sure of, into a culture that we don't really know of. And so there are many, many different factors affecting their decision making. The decisions that they took, especially for my background, was to create a bubble. Now, this bubble was a very religious bubble. I would say a minority of a minority of a minority. If you think Muslims, you think Shia population, and then you think, from where I'm from, kind of Karbala'i, Najafi background, right?
Okay.
For them, they created what did they do? They mimicked what they know. I don't blame them. That's what they know. They mimicked what they know and what they believed in Iraq, and they brought it to London. So all of the rituals that I grew up with, all of the culture that I grew up with, was the culture and the religious understanding and the rituals that were practiced in Iraq, specifically in Karbala. That's where my parents are from, right? So what we have to understand is, okay, so the youth lived through a bubble, but what the parents didn't know, that there was two bubbles. A bubble which, when they come back from school, 3 to 9, and a bubble which was school, which was 9 to 3. Most of the parents did have an idea, did not have an idea of what was going on in school. From their perspective, they didn't need to put food on the table. So they went to work, either taxi drivers or opening shops or whatever they could, in terms of being able to survive. So they didn't know what was going on behind the scenes between when they were in school. Many, many different influences could have affected their children. They might have known about, they might not have known about. But the bubble that they created, and the realistic bubble that the kids lived in, the more attractive bubble, which was youth, children, the way they talk to each other. So I don't want to mention things that are inappropriate, but inappropriate language, for example, inappropriate behavior. All of this was attractive to the youth, which was not really known to them because they lived in a bubble, which was a religious bubble. Now, this religious bubble was, in a way, forced on them. They didn't have a choice because the parents didn't know better. The parents thought, okay, I need to protect my kids. I need to protect my youth. I live in a country that I don't know the language. I don't know the culture. I don't know what's right and what's wrong. What I do know is that this, whether it's Christianity, whether it's English, or whether it's the UK society culture, that will lead our kids astray. What do I need to do? Create an atmosphere in my mosque that is a religious atmosphere. Now, what happens then is that the kid grows up. At home, he's being told one thing. In school, he's being told another.
Yep.
And so there is there's a clash, a generation clash, an age clash, a culture clash. And so the kids naturally went towards what their friends were finding interesting. It could be football, it could be soccer, as you guys might call it. It could be fashion, it could be, at the time, it was like, video games and video consoles, all of those things. But then what also comes with that is things like sex, things like drugs, things like relationships. All of that came with it. So the parents, and also with the rise of social media, that issue then became tenfold. The issue of there is no understanding between the elder and the younger, or there is a lack of understanding between the elder and the younger. What makes the younger tick isn't what the elder thought it was. For them, yes, going to mosque is exciting for them, the elders. Doing these rituals like latom and anashid and lectures, that was exciting for them. Yeah, but it wasn't exciting for the kids. The kids didn't care about the lectures. When I was young, I didn't care about the lectures. I didn't care about the rituals. The rituals was fun to take part of, the latom and the processions and all that. That was fun. But it wasn't like it wasn't life changing. It wasn't something that had a core belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a core, real belief in the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam. Yeah. So rise of social media had a massive impact. Generation gap, age gap. So those kids, it's no wonder that 24, 25, 26% of the US population are, they're not really God conscious, especially the youth or the young adults. Because the only way that they can relate to God is the center that they go to. The center that they go to, they're just not interested. They're just not interested. Yeah. And because of their lack of interest, it means that, look, they may be Muslims, but they're not really practicing Muslims. And once they gain their independence, age of 18, 19, 20, they're going to say, you know what, I not really care about religion. I'm just caring more about my education or my life or whatever it is that they wanted to do. That makes sense.
What do you think about music? Because you mentioned social media. What about music? Because I myself, when I was in my late teens, I used to be a big fan of Marilyn Manson. You might have heard of him. But, lyrics like, I never hated a one true God, but the God of the people I hated. And just, being like just this rebellious figure, like, see, I am rebelling, I am cool now and whatnot. So because you mentioned social media, so I'm just thinking that if we put music as well into this, then in what way do you think that affects our youth, and especially now with all the influencers and whatnot?
Yeah, so look, back in my day, it was, I genuinely didn't know who was who and what was what. But, you think of rappers and the rise of pop music, and then the rise of what we call, I think the genre called in the UK called house and garage music, and then there was grime, and then there's many different genres that came out. Unfortunately, that was the education that our youth received. In terms of how to live your life, in terms of not fearing anyone, in terms of being part of a gang, being part of a community. That community didn't fear anyone. That community was born on money and drugs and sex and women and all of that stuff. That is what was fed to our young adults. And this is all, I mean, if you think of it as part of a wider context, this is all kind of to do with the ghariza, the desire that a human being has. And music plays a massive role in that because it feeds that desire. It gives it a rhythm. It gives it a melody. It gives it poems. It gives it lyrics. All of these things that we associate being bad, the music and the drugs and the alcohol and all of that stuff, we associate. But what music did, it made it beautiful for these young adults, for them to really connect to, because the people that they looked up to were really into that field, because they were making so much money, and there was cars, and there was fashion, and there was clothes, and there was women by their hands, and then there was the other element to it, which was the drugs and the alcohol and all of that. So that is all feeding the desire, the ghariza that a human being has. Now, what happens there is, because what happens now is they are fed religion, which is supposed to be tackling all of these issues.
Yeah.
By teaching you to be able to control your desires, knowing what's right and what's wrong, what's truth and what's falsehood. But it wasn't given in a beautiful way, the same way that these influences were influencing our young adults. The influencers were giving it to them in a beautiful way. And for our young adults, they consume this day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. Even I've noticed with some young adults, when they were younger, so pure, so innocent, at 11, 12, as soon as they go through that period of change, both from the physical perspective, their bodies change, their hormones change. They wanted to test their strength. They wanted to test their bodies. So what happens then is this side is feeding them, give in to your desire. Go and chase that goal. Go and chase that money no matter what happens. Leave your morals to one side, these kind of things. But on the other side, how are we tackling that? The mosque. The mosque wasn't giving it to them in a real beautiful way. The mosque was saying, sit down, be quiet. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is this. Heaven is this. Hell is this. Ahlulbayt said this. Imam Hussein cried. Imam Hussein fought in a battle. And all of these things, these are terms that it's not really feeding their desire.
Mm.
You know what I mean? The desire to control your, to control yourself, the desire to become close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that wasn't fed to them in a very beautiful way. And so music played a massive role. And then that kind of stemmed into social media, because now influencers have an influence on young adults. And therefore that's where you get the problem. And the problem arises where music, as we know it now, there are different genres, what's allowed, what's not allowed. The scholars have a difference of opinion and so on and so forth. But essentially, our kids, our young adults are being heavily influenced. I think probably 60-70% of their influence is through music, which is a staggering amount. So that has to be tackled. How do you tackle it? There are different ways, but we'll talk about that, inshallah.
So please correct me if I'm wrong. So you're saying that first it was music, and now it's music in the form of a person, which is the influencers out there.
Yeah. Because back in the day, we didn't know the lifestyle that these people had. We just heard their music on certain websites, and you had to download that music. We didn't hardly saw their face, maybe on a poster. That poster was on the website. But now the level of consuming is risen to such a level that we can see their lifestyle. It's as easy as an influencer just Snapchatting or Insta story, whatever it is, their day-to-day life. And they're showing them, look, here's my car, here's my house, here's my gym, here's my wife, here's my money, here's my this, and that. Right? Even to the other extent, look, here's my husband, for example. From a woman perspective, it's like, look, the shoes that I have, look, the bags that I have, this walk-in wardrobe, this makeup, this, all of that. Now we can see, we have a window to their lives. How did they get to that? Well, no one really knows, unless it's their music. The music got to that. So for a young adult, he's thinking, I want that. How did he get that? Music got them to this result. So therefore, I need to use music to get to that. Our scholars, they're not painting the final picture for them in a beautiful way. All they're saying is, look, this life is transient, for the akhirah, all of that stuff, and there is a heaven, there is a judgment. Great, but I'm still living in this life. How do I make my life here better? How do I live in a way which is financially stable, but also religious, where I keep my ethics, keep my morals, but don't, and also be able to attain a life which is comfortable for myself and my family? How do I seek money in a way where I want to live comfortably, but also in a halal way? Do I take halal seriously? Haram? There's many different questions that the scholars are like, no, just love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, attach yourself to the Ahlulbayt, and it will all result well for you. But no, it doesn't work like that. Give me practical. I need something tangible, something practical that I can use in my life in order for me to be able to live a life that is halal and live a life that is morally right, reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but also live comfortably. I live in a nice house, I have a nice car, all of that stuff. Allah hasn't said I can't have that. Of course I can have that. Have it through the correct means.
Perfect.
Yeah.
The mosque, our mosques, our Imam Barkas, we both know how crucial they are in creating and developing successful Islamic societies. Why do you think there is this disconnection between our youth and our mosques? So much so that our kids don't want to go to our mosques.
There's a couple of things. First and foremost, I have been bashing the elders and the scholars and the mosques and stuff. I have to kind of put in between brackets what they have done so far, considering the difficult circumstances that they were in, is nothing short of amazing. Let's not fool ourselves. The mosques, many of the masajid, many of the mosques that have been able to run on a weekly basis, opening their doors to the community, being able to hold programs, spending from their own pockets, that in itself is fantastic work. But what we're asking for as young adults, and for myself as well, who I've grown in a very genuinely, I grew up in a community that was so specific to one area in Iraq, Karbala. I grew up in such a very um, niche religious group that genuinely I was surprised when I saw a person who was Pakistani or different complexion to me. He was Muslim, or even Shia. Forget Muslim. Forget Shia. Like a Muslim who was a different color to me was a massive surprise. This is because the community that I lived in, again, that bubble was so tight around me. It didn't allow me to go and see different communities. They say, well, don't go there because just in case, you might stray from the path. Now, what path? This is a Karbala'i Shi'i place. Don't go there because you'll stray from that path. But if these guys believe in Imam Ali alayhi salam, like, there's a commonality between us. Anyway, so the mosques did fantastic work. Where the questions start to arise, one of the things that, look, I'll give you real life examples. I was young. I was doing some very small poems and recitations with my father, who's a sheikh. He's a scholar. He would go from house to house, reciting majalis, reciting in the name of the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam, lectures. So he took me with him a couple of times, and I used to copy a lot of Basim Karbala'i, Mulla Basim, famous Iraqi reciter. I used to copy everything. At home, I used to drive my parents up the wall because I loved listening to these tracks. And actually, this is where the whole music versus what is the alternative comes into play as well. But we'll talk about that, I think, later. So he took me to these programs, and once, twice, three times, I liked it. So anyway, the main mosque, I felt, didn't give a position or high position of responsibility to the young adults, for them to be able to thrive in and be able to take up that responsibility and be able to develop through the mosque. I unfortunately had to go to another mosque in order to be able to be given that opportunity. I was young. I was reciting. Yes, I was young, but at least what I would say now is I'd give an opportunity to a youth in a program that isn't so high stakes, like Muharram, for example. Yeah, I understand. I appreciate it. There's a lot involved. There's a lot of pressure to get it right. There are thousands of people there, and so what you want to, the reciter has to do a fantastic job being able to orchestrate the latom and the anashid and all. I get that, but give me a smaller program. Give me a program where, for example, there's not many people, that I can be able to showcase what little talent that I may or may not have, right? Give me that. But that wasn't given. And so I think this is also a repetitive thing across all of the mosques. And anyone that I did speak to, it's the same thing. The elders didn't really give much of a chance to the youth. If they did, there were many conditions involved. Okay, we'll give you a place for you to have your youth talks, but you're not allowed to talk about this. You're not allowed to talk about that. You're not allowed to invite this person. You're not allowed to invite that person. You can't have an ashid in some societies, some communities. You're not allowed to have clapping, for example. If you are going to do latom, you're not allowed to do 1, 2, and 3. So there are many different. Listen, I'm here. I'm interested in religion. I'm interested in faith. Allow me a place that I can gather all of the youth, gather all of the young adults, be able to have fun, enjoy, bring a speaker, let them in, let them speak about religion in a way that I can connect with, not a scholar who probably doesn't understand my language, doesn't understand how I communicate. So that's where the problem started as well. So not being able to give a proper opportunity for the youth. And actually, in this day and age, we can see the results of their decisions 20 years later, when most of the young adults just fled that mosque. They fled. Every single one of them said, you know what? Look, I love this place. I grew up in this place, but I can't be able to connect to this place in a more administrative level, being able to be holding positions for the future of this mosque and where it's headed. No one's giving us that opportunity. And so I have to go elsewhere. And that's why, actually, in a good or bad way, especially in London, you saw many different youth groups that grew as a result of the main 2 or 3 mosques not really giving an opportunity for the younger adults. And so these youth groups thrived. They said, we're going to do things our way. We're going to do things not the proper way, but we're going to do things the exciting way, innovative way, still holding on to the faith. We're still connecting to the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam. Yeah, but we're going to do things the way that we want to do it. There's no elder that's going to say, no, you're allowed to do this, you're allowed to do that, based on what they think is right and wrong, based on them living in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. We're now living in 2021, 2, 3, and we're going to go into 2030s, right? A lot has changed in the last 20 years. The elders have to understand that. And the youngsters, by the way, have to also appreciate the experience of the elders. They have to appreciate, for example, from an administrative level, how do you run a mosque? Some of these kids don't know. How do you run a mosque? What do you need to do? You need to have an imam, for example, salat times, majalis, speakers, food. There's loads of admin stuff that they need to understand. So the youth left the mosques. The mosques are now turning around saying, oh, youth, where are you? Need you back. We're now saying, well, if you had given us a chance 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't be in this position. Now, the point is, for the future, are we going to learn our lesson? Because technology is going to change. Now, for example, for myself, me personally, I'm 30, I think after 30, forget how old you are, 34, 35. And I'm now fearing that I'm going to follow in the footsteps of my elders by thinking that I know what's best for the young adults. I know what's best because I've lived in this generation. But in the last 10 years, technology has changed so much. Social media has changed so much. Are we as elders attuned to this? Sometimes, I'll be honest, sometimes when I do speak to the youth, I'm like, wow, I can't communicate. Like, what? They're speaking in English, but they're speaking a totally different language to me. And that makes me scared. Because then I'm thinking, wow, hold on, let me take a step back here. Let me really try and understand the culture of the youth now. Because there's going to be a divide. If we're not careful as elders, there's going to be another divide, as we saw 20 years ago with our elders. We're going to make the same mistakes. And that's why places like, I don't mean to plug Haraka here.
No, please.
That's why places like programs on a weekly basis, innovative, fun, religious, faith. If there's a Mawlud, we make sure we have the biggest fun. If there is a wafat, we make sure it's the most serious wafat connecting to the martyrdom of the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam, right? We're all draped in black. We understand the majalis etiquette. The base is still there. And that, by the way, is a huge thank you to our elders. A huge thank you to the mosques that we grew up in. A massive thank you. At least they gave us that. They gave us that core belief of the etiquettes of a majlis, the etiquettes of a mimbar, which is the place where knowledge of the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam is disseminated. We're very, very careful. And most of the mosques as well, very careful as to who you put on the mimbar. Because that person is representing the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam. And that person disseminating the knowledge of the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam. And so that we have a responsibility as who we put up. So etiquettes of a majlis, we have it on point. If it's a fun, we have the raffles and the prizes and the quizzes and everything. So the kids are engaged. Kids aren't just in the back playing soccer, whatever it is. No, they're in the majlis. They're having fun with us. They're crying with us. They're clapping with us. They're doing everything with the elders, so that when they look towards the elder, they're like, wow, I want to be like that.
Yep.
20 years ago, when I looked at the elders, like, I don't really want to be like that. Do you know what I mean? And not in a disrespectful.
No. I get it.
There's this. So the mosques, great work. Do we now have to kind of change that so it's institutions rather than a mosque where it's the Ithna Ashari Dar Tabligh of, for example, the community of Essex or the community of London or the community of North Wembley. These are places of worship. Great. Does it mean we have to create these exact replicas? No, we don't. I mean, Haraka is doing this week in, week out. They're doing programs week in, week out in a center called Diwan al-Kafil. And also many thanks to Diwan for allowing us the space to be able to hold these programs. Where 200, 300, 400, sometimes, one time we had Milad Imam Ali alayhi salam, we had 900 people coming in, and
Oh,
this is a
mashallah.
random Thursday, just a random Thursday, right? Every single
Mashallah.
Thursday, start Dark Kuwait, then do programs. It's the consistency that helped. It's not just like, oh, no way, there's only 10 people here, let's not do this anymore, no one's really interested. No, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Weekly, people understand that there's a weekly program where they're able to have fun, there is food, and they're able to connect with and socialize with their peers.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Inshallah, I will come and visit your blocks when the next time I'm in London. So,
I might have digressed a bit from the topic, but I just I'm just
no.
talking, and yeah, hopefully.
No. You were on point. On point. Our elders are the pillars of our community.
Hmm.
What are the consequences if the elders don't engage with the youth? What do you think happens? Is that something that can cause the youth to be like, you know what? The hell with you, the hell with your faith, I'm out, sayonara.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've seen, we've heard, we know people that know people, and the word spreads very quickly within communities of. I think I was listening to a voice note of a very concerned friend of mine who was saying that as a parent, she came to this friend of mine and said to them, look, my son is now conforming to a different lifestyle.
Mm,
And this different lifestyle is way far away from Islam.
mm,
Help me, what do I do? So there are many questions. Of course, you can't start blaming the parents straight away and say, oh, you should be looking after your son, you should be looking after your daughter. At the same time, you can't be blaming the children and saying, you guys, you should have a bit more faith, and trying to throw the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on them,
mm,
and saying, look, here you go, be better Muslims, or
mm,
come back to the path. It just doesn't work like that. There are ways in terms of engaging with young adults who have chosen different lifestyles. And so the divide happens due to a number of things. In my, again, and I'm not qualified at all to be speaking on behalf of the religion, but just in my experience and when I've spoken to adults, and I've seen parents who do well for their kids, and I've seen parents who are, they could do better for their children. And that's just having an active role in your child's life.
mm,
Doesn't mean controlling every aspect of what they do and what they say, and who they meet and where they go, but just being active. What I mean by active is even from a young age, being interested in the silly little drawings that they have,
mm,
being interested in the bricks that they put together,
mm,
even showing fake interest. I know you're tired, and I know you've come back from work, and I know that there are many different things that could be affecting you, that
mm,
could be stressing you out. But just having that active role in knowing, for example, what your kids get up to in school, and when they come back home, asking them, what was your teacher like, and naming that teacher, just very simple stuff. So what then resonates with them is that my father is aware of my life,
mm,
my mother is aware of my life. And that has to continue and grow as they grow older, because once they reach the age of 9, 10, 11, if there isn't that strong bond where the child feels safe telling you things, not being scared, and that's where discipline comes into play, where the child feels safe telling you how they feel, not what you want them to say. For example, you might tell the child, don't do that, this is bad for you. And the child would say, okay, I won't do it. But behind closed doors, they might do it, because a child wants to test boundaries. They will keep on testing boundaries until they get what they want. So at the age of 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, that very critical and sensitive age, if you haven't created that bond, then this person is going to be influenced by the nearest thing closest to them, and that's social media, right? Or their friends in school, or their teachers in school, or their friends in the community, for example. It could be
mm,
anyone. But if you don't have an active role with your child, for your child to feel safe to speak to you, then problems will occur years down the line. Yeah. And so, in response to the question, is there a divide? Yes, there is. How do we get past that? Well, we can't now blame it on language, because I speak the same language as my kids. My generation before me, my parents didn't speak the same language as me. I had to be a bit more proactive and try to learn Arabic, or my parents spoke only Arabic to me so that I could speak to them. That's the only way I can communicate with them. But did my parents have a full understanding of where I'm going, what's going to happen, who I'm with? Yes, they did. But did they have a full understanding as to what exactly are the conversations? Maybe they didn't. Of course, I'm not saying as parents now we have to have full annotations of what they're talking about, but at least expose them to areas that could be of interest for them that is safe. The local mosque, for example, is a good thing. Creating family groups where similar-minded families. Also, you can, the kids can hang around with each other. There are many different things in order to kind of bridge that gap between them. But the most important thing is listening to them, actually listening to them. Because look, again, from first-hand experience, and I experienced this with my brother, Mehdi. May Allah protect him. Mehdi, I lived, when I was in my parents' house, I lived with him. He is, how old is he now? 21, something like that. I lived with him from the moment he was born up until the age of 12, 13.
Okay.
I've been married for that long, something like that. Anyway, so the age of when he was a child up until a toddler, up until the age of 10, 11, 12, I was with him all the time. He was very heavily influenced by me. Football, the mosque, religion. He would follow me everywhere. I would be very interested in his life. I had this way of like, not discipline, but I was like very stern with him sometimes. He knows when I'm serious, and he knows when I'm joking. And so I kind of practiced being a parent, although my parents were still very active in his life, but I practiced being a parent around him. My parents said to me, listen, you're the one that he can relate to. Like we can try and relate to him, but you dress like him, he wants to dress like you, he wants to go out places that you go out. So try and influence him in that way. So I would have that kind of the brother role, but also kind of the half parent role as well. Of course, I knew his language, so I could speak his language. Then I noticed things changed at the age of like 11, 12, 13. I did notice that change. He started to become a bit more rebellious. Where I used to tell him, Mehdi, stop saying that. You shouldn't be saying that. He'd be like, no, why? Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. Then I realized, okay, take a step back now. This whole authoritarian role that I used to have, where I was telling Mehdi, do this, he'll do it. Mehdi, go there, he'll do it. Mehdi, stop saying this, he'll stop saying this. All of that I used to have with him doesn't work anymore. You now have to respect him as a young adult. But as an older, this is the problem that elders have. The culture is that if I say something, it goes. It happens. That's the culture that I grew up in. Parents say something, kid says yes. There's no such thing as having a rebellion, right? But because I'm not his parents and I noticed that rebellion, I'm like, let me take a step back here. And let me actually find out what is going on here, because I know I went through this. My parents were okay in dealing with that change that I had, but then I knew I had more of a responsibility because he's my brother. And so I then had to kind of change my way in terms of how I speak to him. I no longer started to order him around. I no longer told him, you do this, you do this. I now included him in decisions for the family. I included him in adult conversations. Sometimes he was interested, sometimes he wasn't, right? But then it got me thinking, okay, as a wider context, the elder generation must take a step back and understand, away from ego, let's bring ourselves down to a level that they can see us and we can see them. A kid just wants to know that the parents see them. Yeah. I understand how you feel. I understand that you may be feeling this way. Let's have an open dialogue with the young children. Find out what it is that's influencing them. Just find out from them. What we think influences them is very different to what they actually tell us is influencing them. Yeah. So that's the way we can bridge that gap between the elders and the younger generation.
I think that you touched a very, very, very important point when you said that the elders should be there to listen and not just be like, boom, 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 boom. Because, and I'm sorry if I'm digressing, but I find that, you know, even from my own experience, and this is something that I want to say to all of my viewers out there, you know, I've had some elders reach out to me and tell me that the youth in their family, they have left Islam or they are thinking of leaving Islam. What should we do? And the first thing that I say is, don't say a single word to them. Listen to what they have to say, because that's what no one does. Because the more you go, well, you are this, you are this, you are this, you are that, you never know. That you being authoritarian, as you worded it, that can motivate that young person to rebel even more. And just be like, you know what? No one is my master. I will do what I want to do and what not. So that is something that I really, really, really want my audience to know. And
yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Sorry if it's quite personal. You don't really want people to know, but from the conversations, yeah, from the conversations that we had, you know, behind the scenes.
Yep.
I understand that obviously you kind of left Islam.
Yep.
I went to a different religion, and then from there, I think it was another religion, and then you came back to Islam or something.
Yeah.
But at the time where you were questioning Islam and questioning your beliefs, I know in hindsight we can't say yes or no, but like, what method would you have appreciated if you had those questions around your belief? What method would you have appreciated that maybe could have kept you on this path of Islam?
I would have appreciated it if my questions were answered rather than judged. I would have appreciated a safe space for me to ask my questions. I would have appreciated a safe space for me to even vent. Because sometimes, let's be honest, living the how do I word this? Living the life of living life on the path of the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam, it's extremely difficult. Let's be honest. It's not all hunky-dory. It's extremely difficult, but at the same time, it's very rewarding. But as a young person, I had many questions. There are many things that I did not understand, but then I was not allowed to question them because, hey, what's going through your mind that you're questioning this? You're inside a mosque. You should not say this. You should not ask this. But it's like, why? If you're going to say that Islam is a way of life, then shouldn't you also discuss various topics? You know? So I think that for myself, I would have stayed in the faith if I wasn't judged and if I wasn't ridiculed because of my questions that I had at that time. So yeah. But for myself as well, throughout my journey, I had an amazing relationship with my mother. And when you have that, yes, of course, she's mashallah, she's a practicing Shia Muslim. And it was actually her hands that I held when I recited my Shahada again. So anyway, when you have that, I would say that my connection with my mother, my friendship, if you will, with my mother, it protected me from a lot of things. In a sense that, okay, I don't necessarily follow the same path as she does, but she is my mother. We have a mutual trust. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, she wasn't happy with the life that I chose, but there is a mutual trust, and I will not betray her trust by doing things that are prohibited by Islam. So when you have that connection, that can also be a life-saving. That
Yeah,
cannot be a savior.
I was gonna say it's like a lifeline. There's still that rope that can bring you back to the religion. Like a lot of people when they leave Islam, they're immediately judged and they sever all possible ties for them to come back. But I think what's amazing is that your mum said, look, and you had that respect for your mum, and your mum had that respect for you
Yeah.
to say, look, you're going through your own decisions. I've done what I can as a parent. But you're an adult, you make your own decisions. I'm still here if you need me.
Yeah.
Right. That is what's the most amazing thing. And that is actually, again, to answer the question of the elders and the young adults, that is exactly what we need. We need parents to be a bit more compassionate to our children, because our children are going through so many influences right now. Before, back in the day, it was just school, friends, consoles, and maybe a bit of internet. If you managed to log on. Sometimes it wasn't even allowed at home. But now your phone, now you have access to the whole world. So our kids are very confused because there's so many different influences. But that's why you need parents to be a bit more compassionate, a bit more merciful, to understand and appreciate that these kids are going through hormonal changes, friends, society, pressure, peer pressure, and all of that. So, how do they fit into? They don't want to get bullied. They don't want to get ridiculed. They do want to fit in. And so, how do we make sure that there isn't a way for them to come back? Is through mercy and compassion, just being nice to your kids, being friendly.
Ali, I've had some parents reach out to me crying and being just so angry and saying, you know what, I just cannot deal with this anymore. And the first thing I say is, do not sever your ties, because if you sever your ties with your child, guess what? The judge system is going to come and say, oh, your parents don't accept you. It's okay. We will love you for who you are. We will love you for your choices. Come over to our side. You do not want that. You do not want that, because that happened to me. It did personally happen to me. But alhamdulillah, 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 everyone please make dua for my maman. But alhamdulillah, I had my maman's trust. That is what saved me. If I did not have that, I don't think that I would have been Muslim right now.
I also think you mentioned a very, very important topic, and that's that even if people, young adults who are going through those hormonal changes and those thoughts and feelings that they may have, which is influenced by a wider society, and they may want to go through a different lifestyle, that other side is very caring and loving, and as you mentioned, they will open their arms very, very willfully and happily open their arms to that community over there, which doesn't discriminate against race or gender or culture or religion or background, whereas they paint the picture that religion does discriminate against race and gender and religious background. And so the young adult who's going through all these feelings and just wanting to be accepted doesn't get accepted to what's close to home, gets accepted elsewhere. And that elsewhere is a path that we don't want our young adults to enter into.
It's very dangerous. It's extremely, 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 extremely dangerous. And wallah, you do not even know how much you get sucked into it in the name of love and acceptance. Because, hey, oh, honey, your parents don't accept you. That is fine. We will be your parents. We will accept you. You think that, oh, by you going to the other side, you will be accepted and loved? Absolutely not. No, stop kidding yourself. I have lived through that. There's nothing for you on the other side. Absolutely nothing for you on the other side. Sorry, I can talk about this topic for. So, my next question, it's I think I may have touched on this before, but whatever. Yalla. How do you suggest that our youth become more involved in our mosques and programs?
I think we touched upon this, and that's just, I think from our discussions after we touched upon it, it makes a bit more sense, and that's just respecting our youth, giving them positions of authority where you are mentoring these youths through these positions. For example, you could give a position where the youth is responsible for lights on and off. As simple as that, right? For them, it's like, oh my God, if I get this wrong, the whole place is going to be dark. Or, if I get this wrong, the parents are they're gonna shout at me, so I have to get this right. But for them, you're giving them a position of authority. For you, it's just switching on the light and off. It's not that deep, as we say, right? It's not that bad. But if you mentor them through that position, so for example, you tell them the importance of this position, how you do it, you train them just on a simple position. It could be that, or it could be as excuse me, or it could
Okay.
be as difficult. It could be as difficult as doing the sound, for example. That needs a trained ear. There needs buttons need to press. It could be as difficult as that position, which is integral to a program, or it could be as simple as giving out food or switching the light on and off, right? But the whole idea is to, again with young adults, young children, parents, it's active involvement in their development, actually caring that this person, you want to train them to do well in their role. Okay, now if you amplify that, you want them to become ambassadors of Islam, integrating within society, being proud of their religion, proud of their faith, equipped with ways to deal with these discussions that they have with the other not opposing, but different influences out there. And you want them to be able to become successful both in life and successful in the hereafter. For you to do that, you have to have a genuine care as parents, as mosques, as programs. You have to have an active and genuine interest for the next generation. Haraka actually came about, again, I allude back to Haraka. Haraka came about because four of us were sitting down in a cafe one time. We all have kids, and there were some stories of like drugs in our local community, of weed, for example, in our local mosques, and how the parents don't know what's going on, and this kid is doing that, and this kid is doing that, and we're like, am I going to send my children to this place? Do I want to send my children to this place, or should we not just create something of our own? No one can hold us back. No one can tell you can't create something. No one can tell you can't create a program in the name of the Ahlulbayt alayhim salam. And that is how Haraka was born. Four of us had a passion for our children to be able to grow in a safe place, an environment of religion, an environment where they're able to satisfy their religious needs and also satisfy their social needs by making friends in the local community, by being able to equip them with the knowledge that they need in order to be successful, hopefully, in this life and the next. And so it's the responsibility of the adults to listen, to engage, communicate, not just tell them, Ahmed, switch on the lights. Ahmed, go and get the food from the fridge. Or you think that you're giving them positions where they have to be responsible. You think that, oh look, they're being involved in volunteering, but what are they actually doing? You're just telling them to bring some food, or you're just telling them to put the chairs out, or you're just telling them to clean up. Are you actually having an active role in their lives? Do you hold regular sessions with them? Are you mentoring them one-on-one? Do you reach out to them aside from Haraka or outside of Haraka? Do you reach out to them and say, hey, Ahmed, how you doing? What's happening in your life? What's going on? Anything I can help you with? You never know. This person who is volunteering in Haraka maybe just wants a place to go because his parents or his household is very toxic, and he needs a place to go. And so he tells his mom, look, I'm going to the mosque. And she'll be like, okay, go to the mosque. That's fine. Right? He just needs a place to go. Maybe he just needs that phone call to say, look, are you okay? And he'd be like, no, I'm not okay. I need help. You never know. You generally never know what could any person be going through, right? And so just genuine care, having that open line of communication. Myself, again, I not just keep referring to myself, but the Haraka guys, they have an open group, WhatsApp, volunteers and the elders, us as the elders, and we constantly have conversations between ourselves. What's going on, the latest football scores, all of these conversations. And so having that open line of communication, understanding that yes, as adults, you need to make decisions for the betterment of the community. No problem. You can have those decisions, but also involve the youth, not just create another youth committee, right? And then that youth committee is expected to create programs, but no one's really interested in youth committees. No one really goes to the programs that are organized by the youth. It has to be a mix of adults and the younger generation, because unfortunately, you know, the speakers, the reciters, they only take notice when the elders of the community call them. If a youth who's 15, 16 was to call me, for example, I would take it seriously, but it sounds better if the elder of that generation or that community would contact myself or any other scholar or any other reciter, right? So you need that mix of experience and young passion, that raw energy to do good and to make a change, or to be busy with the majalis. You need that, but you also need a wise, knowledgeable elder community to be able to balance the two. I think so, anyway.
Wouldn't it be absolutely amazing, seriously, if inshallah Haraka opens its own private Islamic school? Legit. That would be amazing. Seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice. It's a very, very, very tough field to go into. I mean, first, let's take baby steps. I mean, I have to, again, side note, give massive thanks and praise to the center, which is called Diwan Al Kafil, who's owned by Sayyid Fadhil Kharsan, who from day one have opened their doors for Haraka and allowed us to have weekly programs in their center. And their center isn't just a warehouse that they make, you know, a makeshift warehouse made into a lights and doors. No, they've gone state of the art building and interior in terms of the lighting design and the massive screen that they have and the car park. Everything, alhamdulillah, is so well equipped for us to say, you know what, we don't have to worry about parking, we don't have to worry about lighting, we don't have to worry about sound, we don't have to worry about the screen. Everything is ready for us to be able to give the best that we can. But in an ideal world, we'd love to have our own place.
One day, inshallah.
Yeah, one day, inshallah. So baby steps. Hopefully, after having our own place, we can segment that place into school, and that could be a place that we can grow.
Inshallah, inshallah. Wallah, all my sincerest praise for you. I'll remember this. I'll remember you folks when I go to Sham, inshallah, soon.
Allah.
So, schools, public institutions. Myself, I'm a teacher. Yourself, you're a father, as well as a teacher to some extent. Some of our youth attend public institutions where sometimes there is a lot of pressure, if you will, to engage in the lifestyles that are not supported by Islam. How do you think we can protect our youth? How do you think we can help our youth solidify their faith so much that no matter what comes to them, they're like, nope, not for me?
I mean, I've always been an advocate of, look, the mosque is great in terms of education and strengthening that religion and faith, but true upbringing really does start at home. Because you go to the mosque, what, once a week, twice a week, if possible. How much are you really going to be influenced by the mosque in terms of being able to equip you with the knowledge to be able to battle these outside influences? Not much, not many. The home is where it starts. The home is where the real education starts. Again, having that active role in who your kids' friends are, not choosing your friends for them, but knowing who they are, right? Knowing what possible conversations that they could have, and just equipping them with a way of them to engage with religion that is interesting, that is exciting, it aligns to what interests them, it aligns to what is interesting for them that they learn in school, for example. It aligns to their way of life. Islam is, as we know, a way of life. Islam is not for adults only. Yes, you start practicing you get sins that are written down and all of that. Your book is opened officially when you become of age, but Islam starts at a young age. You know, I find parents, for example, they make it a point to pray. They don't ask their kids to pray with them, but they make it a point to pray in front of them. Yeah, they make it a point. They put the sajada out and they pray once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. The kid comes and says, "Baba, what are you doing?" "Baba, I'm praying." What is praying? Because they're always inquisitive. They want to know what their parents are doing, especially at a young age, right? If you say to them, "I'm praying," what is praying, blah, 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 you can start to explain. You don't sit down and say, "Listen, Baba, I'm going to teach you about religion now." I don't care. I'm playing. Why? You know, don't. This is not working for me as a kid, right? But through your actions, through your through your actions, your child will want to mimic this. Yeah. um it could be the conversations that you have with them, how you speak about God. And I think first and foremost, we put a lot of emphasis on the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam, and rightly so. And rightly so. But sometimes we forget the fact that the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam were so devout in their service to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in their submission to Allah's will, that we lose that sometimes. The love that they had for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like we have so much love for the Ahlul Bayt, when we should also be directing this enormous love that we have for the Ahlul Bayt, that we're willing to sacrifice ourselves for them. We should also have that same fervor, that same love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God is what is the pinnacle of what we should believe in, and then everything else comes after them. Prophethood, Nubuwwah, Imamah, all of that comes afterwards. As a means to get to God, the Ahlul Bayt are the most perfect. Fine, I fully agree with that. That's why we have to stick to the rituals that the Ahlul Bayt, and how we connect with the Ahlul Bayt. These rituals that we know of, day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out. We'll go to Ziyad Arba'in, take them to Iraq, let them see for themselves. Kids have a fantastic way of connecting with things that they see, not just things that they hear. Let them see the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Let them see the shrines. Let them see the people walking towards Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Because that way, once they start asking questions, but why did Imam al-Hussein go to Karbala? Then you can start introducing God and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the equation. So the more you strengthen and the more you have these open conversations with your kids at a younger age, when they're older and they start to understand a bit more about what's going on when it comes to male, female, relationships, and the outside influences, then you can equip them by starting to educate them as to what is right and what is wrong. When you start to educate them on what is right and what is wrong at a young age, then they'll be able to discern for themselves at the age of 11, 12, 13, 14. They'll be able to discern for themselves what is right and what is wrong. What is their common denominator here? What is their reference point? For now, social media is their reference point. If social media says it's right, then it's right. If Google said it's right, then it's right. Parents, I don't care about you. You guys live in a different generation to me. You don't know what's right and what's wrong now. My reference point right now is social media. But what we need them to understand is that their reference point is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And how does Allah communicate to us? Through the Quran, through the Ahlul Bayt. Why? Because the Prophet has said so. I leave behind the Ahlul Bayt and the Quran. You need one and the other. They have to be the reference point to what is right and what is wrong and how we live our life. There is a whole world of wisdom and tangible, practical tips on how to live your life in this day and age. Not just 14th century ago, but in this day and age. There are practical ways that the Ahlul Bayt have given to us, bit by bit, part by part, age by age, year by year. 0 to 7, this is how you speak to your kids. 7 to 14, this is how you speak to your kids. 14 to 21, this is how you speak to your young adults. They've given us that. Do we take that on board? That's another question. So in order for them to be able to fight, and I really say fight, not just be apologetic for who you are and apologetic to people's feelings. I also have feelings. I also have emotions. I also have alignments. Yeah, I also have my opinion. I also have my reference point. You have yours. That's fantastic. That is great. You can live your life. Yeah, but don't force your way of life and your lifestyle on me. That's not fair, because then I can force my lifestyle and my way of thinking on you. The problem now, in a more practical sense, is that law has come into this. So governments have now decided that this way of thinking is now law. If you refuse it, you go against the law. And if you go against the law, then criminal proceedings will be made against you. Criminal proceedings made against you means that you're not going to have a successful life. Because here in the UK, for example, if there's any kind of discrimination towards any type of background, then job opportunities are at risk. Freedom of religion is at risk. Freedom of expression is at risk. And so there are ways that we have to fight this, but using their terminology, using their way of marketing and influencing. We have to fight fire with fire. It's enough of being apologetic for what we believe in. We have to stand up for what we think is right and wrong. But again, that in this day and age, if you do get up and say, I don't believe in this, you're going to get into trouble. So there have to be different ways. Now, our kids don't understand this. So if our kids, and we tell our kids, no, this is wrong, 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 they're going to go to school and they're going to say, this is wrong, 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 wrong. Then they're going to get into trouble. If they get into trouble, we get into trouble. If we get into trouble as parents, then it's all over. So we have to find a way that I'm still finding myself with discussions with peers and discussions with my colleagues and those who I work with. We're still finding ways to be able to tackle this in order to protect our kids from this way of life or these lifestyles that in the long run is very dangerous for them.
Amazingly said, Ali. Amazingly said. I myself have a lot to share, but that's going to take a full day for me to talk. My last question for you, Ali. This kind of relates to my previous question to you. As long as it's not hurting anyone, why is it a problem? Is an argument that I myself have often heard from young people, especially from young Shias. My question is, how can we make sure that as parents and elders, we install so much Islamic values into our youth that they don't compromise their values and beliefs in the name of humanity?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Tough one.
yeah, it is in a way, and I think I alluded to this in some of the previous answers. And I'm a firm believer that education, religion, all of that starts at home. And what I mean by starts at home, you have to be, as a parent, conscious that your actions, what you say, how you say it, will have a major influence on your kids. So for example, it could be as simple as YouTube, right? And there are certain cartoons on YouTube or certain videos on YouTube that's just full on music, but because there's a cartoon behind it, right, it seems to be okay. So in a kid's mind, because parents are relaxed with music for cartoons, then there is no boundary as to what is right and what is wrong, because to them it's going to be very confusing if, for example, a song comes up from an artist. You tell them turn that off, they're going to say, well, why? Because so and so was on, has the same instruments, has the same everything, that was okay, but this is not. So there's confusion here. Okay, when there's confusion, what happens is the kid says why, the parent doesn't have an answer, be quiet, I'm the parent, I'm telling you to stop. The kid, his question unanswered, and I think that you can relate to that quite a lot. The question remains unanswered. He's been told no reason just for asking a question, and that leaves a resentment in him. That resentment is going to be hidden in. hidden. And the more it happens, the more he'll get answers where? In the outside influence. His answers outside. Because he's not getting answers at home, he'll get his answers outside. When he starts getting his answers outside, that's when the outside influence can infiltrate the mind of what? Young adults. So what we need to do is we need to be very, very active in terms of parenting, active parents, not just parents going to work, putting food on the table, getting them dressed for school, picking them up, letting them watch whatever they want to watch on the screens or on YouTube or whatever it was, giving them dinner. Okay, let's read you a quick story, bedtime, let's do your homework, quick, bedtime, 7 o'clock, because I can't be bothered for my kids anymore. 7 o'clock comes, they're put to bed, and I can just sit down and relax and have my lifestyle again. That's not parenting. That's just having your kids survive. It's not active parenting, is it? So we need to be more aware and conscious that as parents, being engaged with your children, being engaged with their school, knowing exactly what their school is being is teaching the kids, be it private school or non-private school or state schools, challenging the schools, because again, with these schools, you are allowed to challenge them. It's not like the schools, whatever they say happens. No, you're allowed to challenge them. You're allowed to question. You're allowed to put a bit of pressure on them for them to be able to say, okay, we won't teach this. It's fine. They can make that decision. Anyway, so the whole thing in terms of being able to instill the love of the Ahlulbayt and those values all start at home. Kids, and the great thing about from a scientific perspective is that when you're born, the environment that you grow up in shapes your worldview. Yeah, there are connections that happen in the brain when you're a child, up until the age of about 9 or 10. There are connections that happen in the brain that become so hardwired and deep rooted into your mind that it almost like connects to your soul, right? At the age of 13, 14, 15, it becomes very difficult to unlock these wiring that's happened in the brain. It becomes very difficult at the age of 15, 16, 17 to unlock these wires. And that's why they say when you want to create habits, you create them at the age of 12, from the age of 10, 11, 12, 13, up until the age of 15, 16, because habits and personalities kind of form and take, they're cemented at the ages of 18, 19, 20. They can be still influenced, of course, but they're more or less cemented at that older teenage years. What you feed them when they're young is what gets cemented into their mind from a psychological perspective. It becomes cemented into their hard wiring, technically speaking, all of these connections that are happening. So you want to be able to instill love of the Ahlulbayt from a young age, hijab, God, praying, salah, som, through your actions, not just telling them what they need to do, but why. Kids always ask questions about why, and this is the time where you have to be able to answer them. If you don't answer them, at least say, Baba, I don't know the answer to this question, but I will go and find out. Is that okay with you? I'll say, okay, no problem. As long as you're honest, fine. Don't just say, because again, ego perspective, parents also have egos. They don't want to be challenged by young children. So the immediate response is to say, be quiet, I know better than you. Don't ask this question now, leave me alone. That's the immediate response. But if you're actually honest and say, listen, Baba, this is a very good conversation. Actually, it's very interesting. It's actually amazing that you're asking these kind of questions. I don't know the answer to this question. I'll be very honest with you, but I can go and find out. Once I find out, I'll give you the answer. Stuff like that. Just being active, the love of God. Inshallah, we're all active.
Ali Fadhil, thank you so very much once again for agreeing to do this. Thank you. May Allah bless you. Folks, I will leave the link to Ali Fadhil's Facebook page, not Facebook account, Facebook page. Follow him on Facebook, follow him on Instagram, follow the Haraka Instagram page. It's all going to be in the description below. And thank you so much, Ali, once again. We know that it's a little too late in London right now, but thank you so much for giving us your time. May Allah bless you. May Allah bless us all. And may we continue being on the path of the Ahlulbayt alayhi salam, so our youth can learn from us, and may they
Inshallah.
carry the next generation. Ilahi
Inshallah.
Ameen.
I also want to thank you as well for the opportunity to be able to share what little experience that I have in this life, and hopefully the viewers can benefit. And I always maintain that anything good that comes from me is from my parents, and anything bad that I've said is all from myself. So thank you very, very much for this opportunity to be able to speak and to share some thoughts with you. It's been very, very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so, so, so very much, Ali. May Allah bless you.